Okay, so ready to dive into this. It's about the subconscious mind.
Yeah, definitely. This is going way deeper than like your typical self-help stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's not just about, thinking positive. This is about what's really going on under the surface, like the,
Huh.
the programming.
The programming. I like that.
Yeah, like the underlying code. It's pretty fascinating.
So we're cracking the code today.
Yeah, kind of. We're using this source, and they have this great analogy, by the way.
Okay, what's the analogy? I love a good analogy.
They compare the subconscious mind to a cassette tape player.
Oh wow. Okay, that's a good one. I haven't heard that one
It's
before.
pretty visual, right?
Yeah.
So the idea is that a lot of times we think of like our conscious and subconscious minds as this one thing,
Right.
but they actually learn and operate in totally different ways.
Right. Okay. So two different minds, two different programs. How so?
Well, think about it. Your conscious mind,
Yeah.
it's like really adaptable. You can listen to this deep dive and grasp a new concept.
Right.
You might even feel like, I'm going to change everything.
Right. That's me after every deep dive. I'm like, this is it. I'm a new person.
Exactly. But then, life happens.
Life happens and we kind of fall back into those old patterns. Why is that?
That's the big question, right? It's like, are we doomed to repeat our past?
Yeah.
And maybe not doomed, but there's a reason for that struggle.
Okay.
The subconscious mind, it doesn't work that way.
Hmm.
A single exposure to like a podcast, it's not going to change those deep-seated habits and beliefs.
So it's more ingrained than our conscious mind.
Way more ingrained.
Yeah.
And a lot of this stuff, it actually gets formed way back in childhood.
Oh, so this is where the cassette tape analogy comes in. Like we're playing these old recordings from childhood.
You got it. The source really honed in on the first 7 years of life. Super important. Because during that time, the brain is actually in this state called theta.
Theta state. What is that?
Theta is similar to hypnosis, so you're literally just absorbing everything like a sponge, forming all these foundational beliefs about yourself and the world.
That's a little scary, actually, when you think about it.
It is. It is.
Because as a kid, you don't realize.
No, you don't have the filter. You don't have the critical thinking.
Right. And everything seems so real. I remember being a kid and it's like imagination, reality, it was all kind of blurred together.
Exactly. And that's theta.
Wow. Okay. So if a parent says to their kid, oh, you're not good at math or don't be so sensitive, something like that, an adult, they might be able to brush that off. But a kid in theta state, their subconscious is just
Downloading it.
downloading it. Oh my God.
Yeah, no filter. It's just going straight in.
So we're all walking around with this like baggage, these subconscious programs
That's wild, right?
that are informing our behavior and we don't even realize it.
Yeah. I mean, it makes you think about why just like thinking positive doesn't always work.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
you're trying to use this tiny part of your conscious mind to overcome all this other stuff.
Right. So how do we break free? Because that's kind of like the depressing thought. Are we just stuck with these programs forever or is there something we can do about it?
Well, the good news is the source is optimistic. It is possible,
Okay, good.
but it's not just going to happen by thinking about it. You have to retrain the subconscious mind
Retrain it. How do we do that?
through consistent, repetitive action. Think of it like, learning a new language or a musical instrument.
Okay.
You can't just wake up one morning and speak Italian.
Right. It takes practice.
You have to train that part of your
Right.
brain. And it's the same thing with the subconscious. Repetition is key.
So we're talking about like consciously making the choice about the thoughts and behaviors we want and then practicing them over and over, even if it feels weird.
Yeah. Even if it feels inauthentic at first, the subconscious starts to learn the new pattern.
That's really interesting. And I'm sure a lot of people listening can relate to this because I know I can.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all got those negative self-beliefs. Right?
Really? Of course.
Yeah.
We all have those old tapes playing.
Yeah. So let's say someone's dealing with that. Like they're stuck in this pattern of self-sabotage and it's like, I'm not good enough. How do you actually start to rewire that? What does that look like in real life?
Yeah. I mean, that's where these techniques come in. One of the things they talk about is nightly audio.
Nightly audio.
Okay.
Okay. Like listening to something while you sleep.
Exactly. Remember how we were talking about the theta state when you're falling asleep?
Right.
They say that's the best time to get those positive affirmations in, to really bypass that critical conscious mind.
Oh, that's sneaky. I like it. It's like sneaking in the vegetables.
Exactly.
You're asleep. You're not even aware. But those messages are getting in there.
The conscious mind is less active, so there's less resistance. It's like a direct line to the subconscious.
So that's like before bed, right? But what about during the day? What can we be doing while we're awake to work on those subconscious patterns?
Well, it comes back to repetition. The source uses the analogy of athletic training.
Okay.
You don't just imagine yourself winning a marathon. You have to actually go out and run.
Right. You got to put in the work.
Yeah, put in the miles,
Yeah.
build that muscle memory. It's the same concept with the subconscious.
So instead of just hoping for the best, we're actively, consciously repeating those positive thoughts and behaviors we want.
Yeah.
Even if at first it feels a little bit weird. Like, am I really doing this?
Exactly. Let's say self-love is something you want to work on. Instead of waiting for it to just magically happen, you start repeating affirmations like, I am worthy of love. I am enough just as I am. Whatever resonates with you.
It sounds a little silly when you first say it out loud, but
It can.
but I guess the repetition is what makes it sink in. Have you tried this yourself?
Oh, yeah. And it can feel strange at first. It's like you're trying to convince someone.
Right. Like your inner critic is like, no, you're not.
Exactly. But you just have to kind of stick with it, because the more you repeat those statements, the more you're wearing down those old neural pathways and creating new ones. Think of it like driving to work, like a new route you're learning. At first, you're really paying attention. You're like, okay, turn left here, turn right. But then after a while, you don't even think about it.
It becomes automatic.
That's-
Okay, that makes sense. I like that. So repetition is key. And we've talked about this a little bit, but the source also goes into some really interesting areas where subconscious programming can really trip us up. And one that stood out to me was the connection between our subconscious and our ability to receive love.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Because aren't we always trying to work on ourselves and improve our relationships?
Right.
So how does the subconscious play into that?
Well, they make this point that if you're running on this old program of I am unlovable or I don't deserve happiness, it almost doesn't matter how much love you have in your life, because you're going to find a way to sabotage it.
It's like we're getting in our own way.
Exactly.
But why would our brains do that? That seems so counterintuitive.
Well, our brains are wired for consistency. So if we believe deep down that we're unlovable, we are going to unconsciously push away those people who try to love us.
Wow. So even if we want love on a conscious level, our subconscious might be working against us.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Because it's like trying to, play a cassette tape in a VHS player. The formats just don't match.
Okay. I like that analogy. That makes sense. So knowing that, how do we actually change it? Can we reprogram those beliefs about, deserving love and worthiness?
We can. It's not always easy.
Yeah.
But the first step is just awareness. Once we start to understand how this subconscious programming works, we can kind of step back and observe it without judgment.
It's like we're getting to know these hidden parts of ourselves.
Yeah. And once we're aware, we have a choice. We can keep letting those old programs run the show, or we can start rewriting the script.
And how do we do that?
Same way we talked about, right? Repetition, nightly audio, even just becoming more mindful of that self-talk throughout the day.
So it's like a constant process.
It is.
Not just a one-time fix. It's fascinating, though. And it's not just our love lives, right? This source goes on to talk about the connection between subconscious programming and our physical health, too.
Right. And that's where it gets really interesting. I mean, obviously, positive thinking alone isn't going to cure everything.
Right.
But they make a really compelling case for the mind-body connection.
Okay, so even if someone's facing a health challenge, working with their subconscious mind can be a powerful tool.
It can be. Think about it.
Right.
If you're constantly bombarding your subconscious with these messages of fear and hopelessness,
Yeah.
it's going to create internal conflict.
Right, it's not going to help.
Exactly. And that can hinder the body's ability to heal.
So it's not about pretending the illness isn't there, but more about shifting that internal dialogue to a more supportive place.
Exactly. It's about creating that inner environment where healing is more likely to occur. Maybe using affirmations like, I am healthy, my body is strong and resilient, even if it feels strange at first.
So it's like we're choosing hope and resilience even when things are tough.
Yeah. And again, this isn't about dismissing conventional medicine.
Right, of course.
It's about acknowledging that powerful mind-body connection and using everything we've got.
Absolutely. I love that. So we're seeing how much our subconscious impacts our lives, relationships, health, even how we think about ourselves on the deepest level. And the source actually gives this crazy statistic about how much of our mental activity is happening in the subconscious.
Yeah. That always blows my mind.
It's a big number.
It is a big number. They say that 95% of our mental activity is happening in the subconscious mind.
95%. That means that only 5% is our conscious mind. That's wild.
Just like the tip of the iceberg, right?
Exactly. Like we think we're in control, but...
There's this whole other operating system running things.
So it kind of makes you wonder, If all these old programs are running the show, no wonder we have a hard time making changes stick.
Right. It's like trying to drive a car with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake.
That's a good analogy. You're not going to get very far that way. So for someone listening right now and thinking, wow, maybe my subconscious is holding me back, what do we do? Where do we start?
Just becoming aware of it is huge. You can't change what you don't acknowledge, right? So start paying attention. Just notice, without judgment, those patterns playing out.
Become like an investigator of our own minds.
Exactly. And the cool thing is, once you're aware, you have a choice.
Oh, I like that.
You can keep running those old programs, or you can decide to rewrite them.
And how do we do that?
Everything we've been talking about. Repetition, being mindful of your self-talk, those nightly audios are really powerful.
Yeah, sneaking in those positive affirmations while we sleep. I love that.
It's a process, for sure, but it's so worth it.
I think this has been one of my favorite deep dives we've done. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of how my mind works and how much power I actually have to change things.
That's what it's all about, empowering ourselves.
Absolutely. So until next time, keep exploring those fascinating minds of yours, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.